Welcome to our media briefing. I've gotten some laryngitis, so I'm talking a little bit deeper today. We welcome those who are watching from the internet or live streaming, and encourage people to weigh in on the issues and ask questions. First of all, we'll go right to media questions.
We're getting some indications that efforts to combine non-discrimination and religious liberty are unraveling. In fact, Representative Brandy has opened a bill file on the House side that may be used as a vehicle to run religious liberty as a separate bill in the House. Have you heard anything on that? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I have not heard that, but I feel like that if we're going to do religious liberties, we're going to do anti-discrimination also. One will not pass without the other.
Could that all be accomplished in Senator Urquhart's bill as it stands?
I think it could. It could be in two bills. We just need to make sure that those are coordinated, and that hasn't been decided.
Is there any kind of consensus amongst the Senate, though, about how you're going to proceed with those bills? You still have the two Senate bills right now that have yet to make it out of rules.
So we haven't gone to caucus, or I've not polled the Senate members of both caucuses, so I can't tell you exactly what that number is, but my feeling is, reading the tea leaves, that there is almost a unanimous feeling that we shouldn't address one without the other. That we're talking about religious liberties and anti-discrimination. I just mentioned that our feeling is that we won't pass one without the other.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing from our caucus is it would polarize those two issues. If we try to move forward with one without the other, the best way to do it is try to work them both at the same time or together, and I think that's where most of the people are. I agree, we haven't had a discussion about a vote on that or anything, any position. That's the feeling I'm getting.
I don't know if those bills have been assigned to committees, at least Senator Urquhart's bill, Senator Bax's, that's the other one. Have they been assigned to committees? Are they moving, or are they just kind of in a holding pattern currently?
They're currently in a holding pattern until there's more work done on both issues, so that we can feel confident that we have almost solved the questions on religious liberties and anti-discrimination, and so they can both move forward, either in one bill or in two bills.
So are you saying it's your feeling that the Senate would resist any attempts by the House to separate the two issues?
I'm not saying that. We will review what we get from the House and try and reconcile that with what we're trying to do here, and that is move both issues at the same time. And so I can't predict, because I don't know what's going to come from the House, and we'll make those decisions when we get those bills.
But to be clear, at least from your perspective, you're not going to consider the non-discrimination bills that the Senate has until the religious liberties bills are put out, either from the House or the Senate.
That's correct.
Is the Senate, are there any bills dealing with religious liberties being considered in the Senate, or is that entirely House bills?
Senator Adams has been considering a bill on religious liberties. Do you want to?
Yeah, Senator Reid, if you remember, championed that issue, and I worked with Senator Reid throughout the summer and into the fall. And I've been looking at the religious liberties bill with the announcement of what the church has done. Again, I think what the president has said, I support it, that we try to obviously combine the two.
Are you aware of this, what Brian was talking about, Representative D opening a bill file perhaps to separate the two issues?
Yeah, I just talked to Representative D about it, and he said that wasn't the cause, but I don't know. I believe the reason for the bill file, but you may want to talk to him. I'd like him to speak to it, but he may or may not. But he basically said it was for some other reason.
So it's not dealing with religious liberties or LGBT
I
discrimination?
talked to Representative D. He'd have to do that. I'd like not to speak for him. Okay,
But he told you it didn't have anything to do with those issues?
he did tell me that.
He did tell you that?
Yes.
That it had to do with those issues?
No, did not have to do with those
Okay.
issues. Had to do with another issue, but the title is, I think, General Government Amendments, so I think we all have prerogative to do what we want with after we get it, so. Okay.
Senator, do
You
you?
could probably do anything in that bill.
So you can. So whether it does in the future, but he does equity building, so. but-
Good time.
So Senator, would your bill just deal with the religious liberties, or would it incorporate some of what Senator Urquhart's trying to do?
Well, I'm talking to Senator Urquhart and Senator Debacus, and we're trying to now find out what may be able to be done. So hopefully, whatever we do, it's a very, very difficult issue, and it's very hard to, but it's a basic concept I think we can all agree on. It's fairness to all, and try to have freedom for all and try to protect and make sure that everyone gets treated equally and fairly. And I think I've mentioned before that's not an unusual thought in America. And hopefully we can all get behind that and gather together and find a way to make it work. I think there's been some challenges, employment and housing especially, challenges on both sides of the issue. But I think to try to protect employment and housing for everyone, I think we've got to probably be the goal.
Are there any clear lines of division right now, that sticking points?
You know, we're all just trying to get into the very beginnings of this, and I don't think there's really any real definition one side or the other as to whether there's. It is a difficult issue, I'll guarantee you that, but it's something that we're all hopefully can try to work out.
I want to just be clear, are you looking at a combined bill, combining the two? Or when you talk to Senator Debacus and Senator Urquhart, or are you planning on running a separate religious liberties bill?
Well, Senator Urquhart's been kind of the champion of this,
Mhm.
and I think ideally, if we can get something that could fit into his bill, would be super. It's just hard to know. So there's all kinds of possibilities. Senator Urquhart could run a bill. We could try to run separate bills. We could try to, somebody else could run a bill. So I think, or we may do nothing. But one thing I'm committed to, and I'm really committed, and I appreciate the President's position, is I think we're all committed to making sure we get it right. And if we don't get it right, we probably just shouldn't do it.
Is there any chance that these bills could not be heard this year?
There's a chance of that.
Yes.
I mean, the only clear thing we have for you today is because Senator Adams and Senator Urquhart are just beginning to have some conversations on how this will all be worked through, what the language will be. I think it's going to be at least a week before we'll even know what the language will be, but at least the clarity you can have for today is we wish that one will not proceed without the other. And if there's an agreement that cannot be reached, then I think it's a high possibility we could leave the session without a bill, either on religious liberties or anti-discrimination.
And I'd love to have Senator Urquhart in these discussions, because I think it's positive to have, not only in the process of talking to each other, but as we talk with you, I think it's really important that we talk together. So I hope you look for him and make sure you get his comments. But the effort is, I think, again, fairness to all, trying to have equal opportunities, which I don't think, again, a new concept in America. And I think we're trying to work through that process. And in that, Senator Urquhart's very capable, along with Senator Debacus, and want to make sure they're part of the discussion.
I've had communications with both, and they're very positive about sitting down and working through these things here in the Senate, and so I'm confident that we have the best chance possible of making something happen if everybody's working together.
What about the House?
I can't speak for the House.
I know you can't, but you guys want to, kumbaya here, but what
The
about
House has to be part of the discussion because whatever passes here has to pass there. And so we're not looking to exclude the House. We're not looking to do something autonomously here. And so we'll be reaching out to House members and House leadership to try and bring something together that we can all agree on.
And I've had discussions with Representative Andre Christensen, Brad Dee, I think we've all had discussions, but just hopefully we're part of the process. Inclusive, I'd like to see it inclusive, not exclusive, like we always do up here, and when we do that, we get good decisions.
On the issue of Medicaid expansion, it feels like Groundhog Day, Senator Shiozawa, but your bill is up on committee this afternoon, is that correct?
That's correct.
Do you think it's actually going to be heard today?
Barring some problem with the agenda and other issues, and we run out of time, I fully expect it to be heard.
Okay. How confident are you in it passing out of committee? I noticed there's been a lot of groups, it was talked about in social services this morning, there's been a lot of groups that are discussing, or lobbying up here on behalf of the Healthy Utah plan, so care to, place bets on your odds of getting out of committee?
I can't give you an exact count. It's what will come out. I've talked to a number of the committee members who are in favor of this bill. Let me just say, as you look at the options, it really comes down to the Healthy Utah bill and almost doing nothing in the state in terms of practical bills that can go forth. And I think our committee members are realizing that one by one in terms of what are the realities and what's the best way to leverage our monies and take care of our people.
Do you feel like there is more political support for your bill now?
I think political support is growing. I'm very optimistic on that. I'll be even more optimistic after the third reading.
I guess you don't need to be optimistic after that.
No, you don't.
I'll say the Senate. Any other questions on Medicaid?
I
Yes.
do. So the Senate, going back to the group of health advocacy organizations that met today, they were basically just kind of asking the legislature to work with the governor to reach an agreement. And they were saying their patients they represent can't go another year without better options. How does that influence your position?
It was an interesting presentation this morning when you saw the public comment. You had the unusual group of physicians, hospitals, patients, and the business community, including the Chamber of Commerce and another of large association business. Now, this is unusual for that group of people to have joined behind a particular issue, which speaks, I think, positively to the whole notion. But again, to the individual patients, there are some really tragic stories about patients who could have been spared suffering and even could have survived had they had this option early on. And also the spectrum of just how expensive it is if we don't do this.
Okay, any other questions? So we have Senator Urquhart here. Senator Urquhart, we've been talking a little bit about the process as far as religious liberties and anti-discrimination, and have talked about the process that I think is beginning here. And Senator Urquhart is critical to this moving forward. And so if you have any questions for Senator Urquhart, please
Is your bill going to make it out of committee, and if so, does it live or die based upon the religious liberties bills?
Right now, there are lots of ideas being forwarded, and I'd say ideas completely across the spectrum on religious liberties, on LGBT rights, and I think that's a great thing. That's what a legislative body does, is we bring a bunch of ideas to the table, we bring the players to the table. I think we have the players at the table, and so now the ideas are coming forward, and I think that's appropriate for this stage in the session. So now the process will begin, that we start winnowing down those ideas. What are the best ideas that are out there? What are the politically feasible ideas that are out there, and we go forward. And so, my expectation is that next week we start seeing, a bill or a couple bills that will go forward. And right now, I can't tell you what will be in those. Actually, I think it's a touch early for that. I think that we need to invite all the ideas out on the table and then do the tough work of putting them together in a bill or a couple of bills.
The president said you were critical. What are you critical of in regards to this
He's not
process?
Critical.
he's just key in his role in this process
Oh,
because.
critical is important.
Yeah, so sorry about that. Senator Urquhart's been working on this now for how many years?
3.
Is probably the most expert we have in the Senate, and so it's important that he's kind of the lead key person here in the Senate in this discussion.
Senator Urquhart, how do you feel about the idea of municipal clerks being exempted because of religious beliefs to performing same-sex marriages?
Yeah, okay, so let's talk about some of the ideas that are out there. So my bill, it deals with employment and housing. And I think that is a good place to focus the discussion. My take, and I'm one of 104 legislators up here, is, I'm trying to temper expectations a bit. I think if we take a really huge step, there are just so many potential pitfalls, and there are so many divisions that exist. It'll be tough to really take any step forward. And so what I'm hoping for, and what I'm talking with colleagues about, is what is a positive step forward. Think about when you're moving an object. A lot of times that's the toughest thing, is to get that initial push, that initial move. And so I think that if we focus on employment and housing, then that is an area where you have protections both for sexual orientation, gender identity, in particular the LGBT community, and people of faith. Because if my bill goes forward, those will be 2 things in it. And so that will say that it is not the business of an employer, it is not the business of a landlord to dig into someone's religion or religious beliefs or sexual orientation, gender identity. And so I think that is the natural place where we do balance those things. And I think they fit perfectly, they fit harmoniously within a bill. And I think that is a place where we can achieve some consensus.
So suffice it to say, we're just, this is not necessarily the beginning. There's a lot of work that's been done in previous years. We're now trying to, with a little bit of a new environment here, with both issues at the table, try to figure out how they work together and come up with 2 bills, 1 bill, and whatever that is, we're having some good heads think about how that's going to work. So we'll probably know more in a week or so, I think, and be happy to have that discussion.
But it sounds like your bill may not go forward unless they get the religious liberties, and it sounds like it's going to be more than just housing and and employment. That we're talking about duties of government officials, which appears to be the sticking point from the people who back your bill.
I don't think we can reach a conclusion on that. I think that, that definitely is an idea that's out there. I mean, that's in Representative Andrake's bill, but I don't think any decisions have been made as to what is going to go forward. I think that right now all ideas are on the table, and that's how this process works, as we figure out, okay, we know we want to move forward on these 2 very important things, LGBT rights, specifically non-discrimination, and religious liberties. I think that those are 2 things that are important to a majority of the people in this state. And so that's the tough lifting. I do think most people up here would agree to that statement. But how we do that, that's to be determined, and that's the beauty of legislative process, is we throw our toughest, most divisive issues into the legislature, and we're tasked with coming up with solutions, and that involves a lot of very complex calculations and tough discussions, but I think we'll get there this year.
2 bills, 1 bill?
I don't know.
And I think we're all...
If it works with 3 bills or 5 bills, let's do that. I mean,
Yeah.
we'll figure it out.
I agree with those comments, and I think there's a lot of momentum, but with that momentum, I think we all agree that we want to get it right. And getting it right is more important than some of these other details you've been talking about. And that's what I think the president's been saying, is that we want to make sure we've got it right and we move the right effort forward.
How much of this discussion is occurring with
this group at the table, and how much of it is the
We
broader
just
body?
barely began, haven't we, Steve? I don't know if we even had a good discussion, so we're just starting. Steve's been at it for his entire life, some of us are just getting into the issue.
Okay. Any other questions?
Do you feel like you're moving fast enough in the session? Do you feel like
Fast
you're-
enough?
Yeah, getting to these bills, or is, I mean, we have a record number of bills being requested this year, and do you feel like you're able to address them, or is this, not going anywhere?
Well, we have a 45-day process. We have limited time in that area for committees and floor time, and we'll address as much as we can during that time. But I don't view it as something that we're moving fast enough or that we need to speed up or slow down to pass a certain amount of bills. We're just letting things happen. There's debate, and we want to make sure we're passing good legislation.
Yeah, I think if Senator Hilliard were here, he just barely stepped out, but I think he would say, the budget is the most important thing that we do up here. We did pass a base budget, and now we're going to be looking at all of those additional budget requests that are out there and rebuilding the building blocks and other things. And so when we get the budget all done and we go out here with whatever other ideas and bills that we discuss, we will at least have the budget, and that's the most important thing that we do. The state will be okay. So that's the most important thing we do.
So we have a question from one of our viewers,
We do.
Kirsten.
Came over chat on YouTube. That's one.
Okay, chat. All
It
right.
came from Dan
Didn't know.
Cameron, actually. He said, Senator Niederhauser, last week you talked about reducing the amount of money diverted from state income tax to other priorities. How are you addressing that?
We're addressing that by looking at how we're going to increase our transportation funding, because that's where that money migrates, is over to transportation. And if we can address our transportation funds, I think that stops the migration of income tax or education funds through the general fund and higher ed to transportation. And that's where our hole has been in the past. Along with Medicaid, that's a program that has grown beyond this. It grows faster than the rest of our budget, and so yes, some of that has gone to Medicaid, but some of it has gone to transportation. But if we're dealing with transportation, and we're dealing with that with motor fuel taxes and other dedicated funds, there's less education funds coming through through our higher ed over to transportation, and we have to stop that at a minimum this session, and we can do it that way. Hope that answers your question. All right, thank you everyone
Thank
for
you.
participating.
Appreciate that.